Greetings everyone, my name is Sai, and just like everyone else, it is now time to bow my head at the altar of YouTube SEO and pick out my personal favorite 5 games of 2016. The only rule is that early access games are not eligible for a spot until they come out. So with that said, let's get started, shall we? Despite the fact that I endeavor to play pretty much every game that I can get my hands on to expand my general lexicon of game knowledge, I always tend to have at least a few pocket games in reserve to play whenever I can't be bothered by something new or just want to relax with something familiar. And for quite a big chunk of the year, Stardew Valley very much filled that position. In that way, Stardew Valley reminds me of a big, comfy armchair. Whenever I've had a long, hard day and just want a comforting distraction above all else, I can just open it up and spend a few days watering crops or milking cows, all the while slowly adding additions to my farm or spending time mining in the dungeon or fixing up the community center. Stardew Valley didn't change my life or anything, and I doubt it would even break my top 50 favorite games, but like I said, it's a really effective relaxation tool. And there are days when I appreciate something like that far more than I would a complex and epic story. So if you ever feel stressed and just want to sit back and relax in the gaming equivalent of a tub of ice cream, then maybe check out Stardew Valley. Pony Island came out at the start of the year, and as such will probably have been forgotten on most people's lists, but not mine. It seems like the last few years, indie gaming has been going through a fourth wall-breaking meta-commentary phase, starting, so far as I can remember, with the Stanley Parable, but a trend that was later continued by Undertale, Superhot, The Magic Circle, Calendula, Icy, and now Pony Island. Fortunately, this trend is very much a thing that I'm into, although I have heard that people are starting to get sick of it. But if you're not quite there yet, I highly recommend Pony Island. In Pony Island, the very first thing that happens after you click the Start Game button is that the color and sound drain away to be replaced with a new start screen. So you click Start Game again, but this time the button breaks, and the very first puzzle you have is fixing the Start Game button. That's the kind of experience you're in for here. The aspect of this game that made it into one of my favorites of the year is that it's the first puzzle game I've played to incorporate puzzles so well into the story that they don't feel like two separate things. Like in Portal 2, let's say, you have story sections and you have puzzle sections, and never the twain shall meet. And that's also true of Pony Island, but it manages to incorporate the puzzles so well into the narrative that you never feel like the puzzles are interrupting the story, but rather that they're a continuation of it. Pony Island's meta-commentary isn't nearly as interesting as the Stanley Parable, nor is it as emotionally impactful as Undertale, but that's by design. It's a 2-hour-long game with a relatively small scope that does what it set out to do very well, while keeping you entertained the whole way through, and I heartily recommend it.
Welcome back, Commander.
I nutted all over my pants when I first heard that. A sequel to the original XCOM remake, Be Still My Beating Heart. And while I admit that it didn't really add that much new stuff aside from the extensive character customization, it did give me the excuse to clock up another 40 hours playing this type of game, so I'll take it. Not to mention, the final mission will forever be burnt into my head. It will be to my eternal shame that I wasn't recording at the time, but the gist is that after all this other amazing shit happened, I was down 5 party members of my squad and only had Prophet from Crisis and my commander's avatar left. Both were badly hurt, out of healing items, endlessly respawning enemies were preventing us from leaving the choke position I'd had them take, and the final avatar was teleporting around the room every time I hit it, making things that much more complicated. So I had written this particular save off already and was prepared to restart, but by an insane stroke of luck, the enemy avatar had happened to teleport just within the reach of Prophet's Null Lance ability. As in, if he had been a square away, I wouldn't have been able to reach him. But I did, and Prophet won me the game. I'm fully aware that no one else will think that's as cool as I do, but holy fucking shit. I can't remember the last time a game has made me jump out of my chair and yell, "Fuck yeah!" at the top of my lungs. I had no expectations for Doom. After the E3 2015 trailer, I thought it looked okay at best, and I vividly remember groaning when the audience repeatedly started screaming whenever they showed one of the chainsaw takedown animations. The most that I thought it had going for it was that it looked pretty. We've all been burnt on that front before, so I pretty much wrote off caring about it. Then there was that whole big fiasco with Bethesda not sending out review copies for it, and I was preemptively ready to call it a flop. That is, until it released, and everyone collectively lost their shit yelling about how amazing it was. So after a few reviews from people I trust really recommended the game, I decided that I would pick it up and see what all the fuss was about for myself. And to my surprise, Doom is actually really fucking good. A very faithful remake of the original Doom's gameplay, brought up to date with new mechanics and graphics. I do think a bit of the game's hype continues to be overblown. For example, everyone loves to bring up how the game knows no one gives a shit about the plot, as evidenced by the Doom Marine pushing the screen away at the start of the game. But then they also seem to forget the 10-odd separate occasions where the game locks you in a room and won't let you leave until it's finished giving you exposition, but I digress. Still though, the gameplay is just so much fucking fun, I can't deny that I love it regardless of its admittedly few flaws. And finally, a quick story. There's a power-up in Doom that, when you get it, allows you to one-hit kill every enemy in the game by ripping their faces in half, or by pulling their spleen out of their mouth and shoving it back in through their ass. And the very first time I got that power-up when playing the game, I started maniacally laughing. And not a fake maniacal laugh like I mean, it sounded like that, but it was also a genuine laugh at the same time. To the point where I am absolutely convinced that had anyone walked into my room at that moment, they would have assumed I was a school massacre in waiting and had me sectioned. So good job, Doom, you are so much fucking fun, you might have driven me partially insane for a few seconds. When I was sat on my bed, huddled in a blanket writing the script for this and trying to figure out what game to put on the list where, I was trying to decide between the two fast-paced shooters that came out this year and that were better than my initial impression of them said they had any right to be. But when it came down to it, I decided that I enjoyed Titanfall 2 a teeny bit more than Doom. And that comes down to a couple of key things. Thing the first, Titanfall 2's level design, specifically the factory level and cause and effect, really stuck with me. Whereas Doom's procession of white-tiled science labs that are begging to be repainted blood red sorta just blend together in my mind. Thing the second. Yes, Titanfall 2's campaign was only about half as long as Doom's, but Doom had shit multiplayer, whereas I've been enjoying the fuck out of Titanfall 2's multiplayer. In fact, after discovering that the EPG works almost exactly like the Spin Fuser, I've been having a blast trying to recreate my experience playing Tribes. And finally, thing the third. Giant robots are cool. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe for all the awesome shit that I'm gonna do over the next year, and toss me a few bucks on Patreon if you can afford to. Remember, I'm broke as shit, so you could probably classify it as giving to charity. Special thanks to my lovely Patreon patrons, Isaiah Christo, Sawsbucky, Krista, Killy, Forgotten Paladin, Ludwig, and Magellan for helping support my videos. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next year. Later.